everybody, John12 back here again with another video, and I'm here to give you my official review for Supergirl Episode 5, titled, How Does She Do It? Now, of course, if you haven't seen this episode, please go check it out, because this review may contain spoilers. But that being said, let's get into tonight's episode of Supergirl. Now, before I get into the actual logistics of the plot, and the characters, and the performances, and all that, jazz, I need to point out something that I didn't really realize when I was reviewing last week's episode. It was pointed out to a subscriber on Twitter to me that apparently what CBS did was switch out this episode for last week's episode. So essentially, this is supposed to be episode 4, and the episode we got last week was supposed to be episode 5. I know it sounds very confusing, but essentially, if memory serves me correct, CBS was trying to cut this episode out of last week because the whole Paris terrorist attacks were happening. The bombings over at Paris was, which of course was a very sad and unfortunate thing that happened over there. But CBS, being a bunch of pussies, was like, you know what? We're going to cut that out because it's a little insensitive. And I understand that. I completely understand why they would want to do that. But at the end of the day, after watching this full episode, it's not really even that dramatic. And also on top of that, it's also not really that insensitive. I mean, granted, this episode is very bomb heavy, and it's very predicated on the fact that this episode, it's Supergirl versus bombs. That's pretty much the full logistic of the episode summary. It's Supergirl versus bombs. So I can understand why CBS would want to cut it out and save it for next week, which of course was supposed to be the Thanksgiving episode that we got last week, but what are you gonna do? It's a weird scenario. I wish they could have just, freaking sacked up and just showed this episode, because for one, this is a superhero TV show. I mean, you're gonna deal with some carnage, and you're gonna deal with some destruction here and there. It's gonna happen, especially when you're dealing with characters like Supergirl who have insanely overpowered abilities. So you're gonna deal with these kind of things going down in your shows. But on top of that, it's just like, the beauty about superhero TV shows is that it's completely unrealistic in the terms of how it works into real life. Like, in our real reality, if you will, we don't have superheroes. I mean, yes, we have our modern day superheroes, which are, of course, like, armed forces and firefighters and police officers who are out there on the streets, saving people when, these kind of shit goes down and, cities blow up and what have you. Like, those are the heroes of today's reality. But it's not comparable to when you have a Superman or a Supergirl who lives in their realities, their fantasies, if you will. So these different kind of things, it's a sketchy situation. I don't want to get too deep into the debating of whether or not it's good or bad to air these kind of episodes, way later after these real life events happen. I guess that's more of a debate for another time. But at the end of the day, I feel like as a TV purist, it would have been more appropriate just to show that episode because of continuity reasons. And on top of that, this episode's not really that offensive towards that specific attack because the situations and stories are completely different. And plus, that universe has a Supergirl who can literally save everybody in the split of a second, in comparison to our reality where, it takes actual weeks to actually save every single person from the travesties of stupid, idiotic terrorist attacks. So that's just my personal view on the whole situation. Let me know what you personally think in the comment section below. Do you think it was a right move for CBS to switch out this episode for last week? Or do you think after watching the episode, you would have been alright if they showed it? Let me know your personal opinion. I know people can get very crazy, so let's try and keep very civilized in the comments, but let's just see what happens. But that being said, getting into tonight's actual episode, it was very boring. I think that's the best way I can put it. The visuals were amazing. The effects were awesome. It's Kara essentially just taking care of Cat Grant's son, who she goes off and does some kind of business vacation or what have you, so Kara has to take care of her son. And then on top of that, you have freaking Maxwell Lord, who's releasing his super train, if you will, and on top of that, he's like behind the scenes doing some sketchy stuff with drones. And then on top of that, you have, of course, the infamous James Olsen and Lucy Lane and Kara love triangle, which is the most despicable thing on TV right now. I personally despise it. I wish they would cut it out of the show, but it's just my personal opinion. I just don't like it. I feel like they should stop it already, because the only thing that's happening is I want to throw up every time it happens. Like, I mean, the full episode, like, this show took a weird turn where it's like, instead of focusing on a character's story arc and focusing on, you know, becoming a hero and being like an image for women and like learning, you know, your powers and abilities, it's more like, how do I make sure that I can still be a good person, yet trying to get Lucy Lane out of the picture so I cannot be in the friend zone, and then I can be with James Olsen because he's good looking and I smile a lot apparently when I see him, and then, you know, everyone's happy because I get to be in with freaking James Olsen. That's kind of like the thought process that Kara's going, especially in this episode. It's just not working for me. I know there's probably some people out there who do like it, who do love and enjoy watching love triangles, but it's just not my kind of... It's not my cup of tea, and it's really, really becoming a main focus of the show, and it's annoying the crap out of me. But on top of that, let's get back into the main storyline, Kara taking care of the kid. It was a big misfire. I liked the fact that the kid was, he was kind of shy, he was like very... you know, into Supergirl. He was a fanboy for her and stuff. He really looked at her as a hero, and that's really cool and awesome, but I feel like it was a big misfire in CBS's part. And the only reason I say that is this show, its main focus is not guys. Like me, who's, you know, watching this shit, it's not meant for me. It's meant for women. And I don't know if women have been fully sold on watching this show. I really don't know, because apparently like the ratings for Supergirl has been very wonky, so I don't know if people really give a shit about it anymore, so it just really depends. And from the very you know, few women I have heard from who watch, you know, a whole bunch of, you know, freaking comic book TV shows, don't really care about Supergirl, so I really don't know. But at the end of the day, with that aside, I feel like as a viewer, it was a big missed opportunity to... I think the best way is they should have switched that boy's gender. I feel like it should have been a girl, and it should have been Cat Grant's daughter, so, you know, you would have like this focal point where you have her really looking up to Supergirl and seeing her as a role model for women and little girls like her. I feel like that would have been a superior storyline. Unfortunately, CBS didn't do that because, I don't know, maybe they, like, after, like, the first episode or two, they were just like, you know what, let's forget about, you know, focusing, like, female empowerment and superhero-dom. Let's just focus on, you know, freaking James Olsen's relationship status with Lucy Lane and freaking Kara Danvers. I feel like that's been the main focus. And I really feel like that was a big missed opportunity. I mean, you have this kid who's obsessed with Supergirl, but not in a sexual way. He's not that kind of, you know, fucking horned up. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe he is. I don't freaking care. But at the end of the day, I feel like if you switched out the genders and just made it a girl, it would have been so more gratifying to see someone look up to Supergirl who's actually a female, so that people can, like, think differently and know that this is a legitimate thing, and it's not just, you know, guys goggling over her because she's so hot, you know. I feel like that was just a big missed opportunity. On top of that, the Maxwell Lord stuff, I liked it. I feel like Maxwell Lord is trying to, especially in this episode, he's trying to come off as, like, this TV version's Lex Luthor, and I feel like it serves a purpose. I think it's alright. I mean, granted, he's not on par with Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor will always be the definitive villain for any kind of Superman character because it's freaking Lex Luthor. I mean, come on, you can't beat that guy. He's fucking... That's the beauty about characters like Lex, and they're trying to incorporate that with Maxwell Lord, which I appreciate, is that it's brain over brawn. Characters like Maxwell Lord and Lex Luthor in these specific continuities and TV shows and movies is that they know they can't beat Supergirl or Superman, so they have to use their brain to outthink that person. That's the beauty of these characters and why they're so much of a threat. Because even though Supergirl or Superman can just swoop in and just like eliminate this character like fucking so easily, they can't. They just can't, because it's A, morally wrong, of course, and, you know, all that kind of wacky comic book, you know, drama. But on top of that, it's just like, he has beaten you 10 steps out of the gate, because he's known for the longest time that he can't beat you physically, but he has found a way to beat you mentally. And that's the beauty about this character that he's been shown, because all throughout the episode you have these drones following Supergirl. She doesn't really understand why they're there, you know, the DOE or DOA or whatever the fuck those fucking wackadoos in that cave want to call themselves, don't know what the technology drones are doing. It's very, very sketchy. And then you understand at the end of the episode, spoilers, that Maxwell Lord has been like the overseer of this whole situation, this whole episode, and he's been trying to figure out who Supergirl really is. He knows that she does things for a specific reason, and now that he's found that reason, he needs to exploit it. And that's the beauty about this character that I really like. I mean, granted, the actor who's playing him, the character of Maxwell Lord, is hamping it up a little bit. Like in this, like the last few minutes when like Lord and Kara are having that discussion, it's so hamped up and comic booky. It's fucking hilarious. I mean, he's just so, he's taking it a little too serious and sketchy. He's like Fish Mooney crazy at this point in time. But that being set aside, overall the villain I didn't really like. I mean, I feel like the show also had a big missed opportunity to really do something serious and dark. The episode didn't really make that much sense with the terrorist attacks. I mean, the bombings didn't really have that much effect. No one really died. There was no real destruction with any kind of monuments. I mean, yes, the super train was destroyed, but that was a stupid piece of technology in the first place, so who cares? And plus, Maxwell Lord came up with the whole idea, so who cares about that? So, he didn't really have a purpose, which is weird, because, I feel like if you were going to create this whole backstory where he was doing this for his kid and, he killed himself because he didn't want his kid to find out or whatever the hell, there was a weird subplot here that I don't understand fully, probably because I was bored out of my mind after watching the stupidity of that love triangle between all those people, so maybe that's why, but overall, the villain sucked. I'm just going to put it out there. He sucked. He was terrible, and I feel like they should have took another turn with it and made it a little bit more dramatic and darker, because I think the beauty about characters like Superman and Supergirl is that, and I know a lot of people like to compare Supergirl to Man of Steel, but if there's one thing I really liked about Man of Steel is that right after Clark kills Zod, spoilers, I mean, like, the movie's been out for a while now, kids, so freaking watch it. You should have been warned prior, but anyways, he kills Zod, and right after he does it, he yells because he's angry that he did this. He didn't want to do it, but he had to do it, and that's the beauty about the Superman lore, is that when a character like this, of this caliber, does something like this, like lets someone die, it affects them mentally and emotionally very seriously. And they didn't really do that with Kara. Like, Kara, watches him die for a split second, but there's no real emotion, there's no real character there's no real good performance. And after that, there's like this weird thing where she's trying to think, why did this happen? And then she's almost like a viewer. She's like me, almost, like just talking about like, okay, how do I explain this plot and make it make sense? It's impossible. Like, even when she's talking about it, she's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like, no shit, because the plot, whoever wrote this episode didn't make any sense, because it's so dumb. But at the end of the day, I have to give my final verdict, because I'm pretty much done talking about this episode. I have to give this episode a full-on 5.5 out of 10. It's pretty average. It's an okay episode to sit down, relax with some friends and, watch something interesting with some pizza or some popcorn or whatever. It's a popcorn episode. That's pretty much the best way to put it. It's an okay episode. It's not the best of the season, and it's not the worst of the season. It's just an okay episode. That's pretty much the best way I can put it. But overall, that being said, comment below. Let me know what you personally think about this episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What are your personal thoughts on the terrorist attacks? Do you think it was a good idea to switch out the episode with the Thanksgiving episode, even though continuity-wise doesn't make any sense? Because, you know, if you're watching this show like back-to-back, it's like, okay, what? So, for future reference, switch out 4 and 5, and you'll be okay. But that's pretty much all I can really say about that. But also, on top of that, some quick little updates. This is going to be my last episode that I will be reviewing for Supergirl. I was originally going to review the entire season, but seeing as how the show has taken like a really weird left turn into a really weird direction that I am very uninterested in, I am going to stop, reviewing it. I'm going to still watch the season, and I'll probably end up reviewing the finale, but overall, I'm just been kind of bored, and and the last thing I want to do is, like, sound like I'm hating on a show, like, every time I review it, so I'm going to stop before, people get crazy. But I will be replacing this show for another Monday TV show, and I'm not going to say what it is yet, because I haven't decided fully if I'm going to review it, because there's tons of shit I've been reviewing lately, so I don't know if I can put on my plate yet. But overall, I will give you this hint. It's very popular, it is in the superhero genre, and it's an anime. Yes, I will be reviewing an anime on my Monday night. So, of course, let me know what you personally think about that in the comment section below. And of course, next week is the Red Tornado episode, so let me know what you personally think about that as well in the comment section below. But that being said, this has been my review for Supergirl Episode 5. And that being said, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at John12. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and this has been John12.